prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live today after the game. Just a reminder, we go live after every game to recap what happened. And today we are recapping what could be a new Raiders low. And there's been a lot of lows, but this might be a new one. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. I'm Ted Wynn. And yeah, today the Raiders just dropped a game, and not only just dropped a game, they got steamrolled by the Carolina Panthers, who did not even have a lead in the game since when, Tashan Reed?
December 2023, according to Joe Person from The Athletic. So,
yeah. Ooh, that was a tough one to watch.
I want to apologize to Andy Dalton, first off. I want to apologize to Raiders fans for saying it was going to be a blowout and that the Panthers are not a quality NFL team. I want to apologize to my family and friends. That was like all the players and the coach said, it was an embarrassing effort. They came out flat. Score could have been a lot worse than it was. It really, the Panthers could have done whatever they wanted to do offensively, and the Raiders couldn't match them. So ugly loss.
yeah, the jinx lives. I mean, I don't think any of us are shocked they found themselves in, a game they should have won, against the Panthers with this type of team that, they could potentially lose it. But even, the worst forecast, I didn't see them losing by 14 points. And like Vic said, it honestly should have been worse than that. I mean, the Raiders had a couple garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They only had 7 points through three quarters, and this game was over against this type of team, starting Andy Dalton, retread quarterback. They look awful on both ends the whole year, and Raiders went out there in the home opener and got stomped on. So it's not really, there's no positive spin for this one. Like this was definitely their worst loss in a minute.
Yeah, I thought it was over early because I think these kind of games, you can't give the other team life. You can't give them hope. Like they're hopeless. They benched their number one draft pick. They're kind of like, hey, we might be done. They come out, they're able to march on the field. The middle of the field's wide open. The short passing is working. Raiders get the ball, trying to force a run game. They've run for like 12 yards in their first 4 carries, and it's just a really bad way momentum wise for them. I don't know if the Panthers also are going to get like a boost. Hey, we actually have the lead. We're actually winning. We actually can do something. And it got worse and worse and worse. I just think just bad. I think that guy outcoached. Besides getting outplayed, I mean, obviously Coach Pierce said that he thought some guys made business decisions in the game and the effort wasn't quite there. But they also got outcoached on both sides of the ball, so it was a total team loss.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a closer game than most people thought, but I did not think that the Raiders were going to lose and get pounded by the Panthers. I mean, I think Andy Dalton does provide competent QB play for this team, and but he also made a lot of really hard throws in this game too. Like that touchdown throw he threw another first down between 2 defenders, and that went for big yardage. And the Raiders haven't been really great at tackling. That's been one of the weaknesses of this defense is they have missed tackles, and it all kind of blew up on them in this game where they missed multiple tackles, taking bad angles, allowing a ton of yards after the catch. I thought they played a little too soft coverage. I like that Patrick Graham did come out blitzing, and we kind of discussed that before. But he did come out blitzing, which I thought was the correct approach. But the problem is they're just playing so soft that Dalton was just able to throw the ball short and just get a ton of easy conversions that way. And when it didn't blitz, Dalton had all day to throw today. I looked at some stats. When the Raiders blitzed, the Panthers averaged 5.9 yards per play, defensive EPA, expected points added, minus 0.1. When they didn't blitz, they averaged 9.3 yards per play with a defensive EPA of minus 0.71. So that's a pretty noticeable difference. But this team is supposed to be a team that is able to get home, especially against a offensive line like the Panthers. I think they are actually a little bit underrated, but they should be able to get home with 4. But today just seemed like Dalton had all day to throw.
It was especially bad on third down. I thought third down he had a lot of time. I think one of the reasons I'm sure is Maxx Crosby played with a high ankle sprain. He was pretty much a non-factor today. He had that one pass breakup. I think he touched Dalton once on the day, but clearly if Maxx Crosby's not Maxx Crosby, then your odds of winning go way down. But yeah, third down, I thought especially the pass rush was non-existent, and he was able to pick him apart when he had to.
Yeah, and Crosby got hurt last week, the second to last play against the Ravens. We mentioned that, he's a guy who's going to play through it, but it doesn't mean he's going to be 100%. He clearly wasn't in this game with the high ankle sprain, understandably. He wasn't himself. I think Christian Wilkins had a sack in the game, but again, he didn't make a huge impact in this one. And, of course, as we talked about, they haven't had Malcolm Kuntz out there, and they won't for the rest of the season. As we reported over the weekend, he's going to have knee surgery next week and be out for the year. And they haven't had somebody else step up at edge rusher besides Maxx Crosby. They've tried rotate different guys in there, Janarius Robinson, Charles Snowden, Tyree Wilson came off the bench coming back this week from a knee injury last week, but they haven't gotten anything out of those guys, and they haven't had the 4-man pass rush that they expected. Obviously, Kuntz was a big part of that, but even without him, you would think that they would be better than they have been so far. And not just the pass rush, but I thought the secondary had a lot of breakdowns too. Deontay Johnson seemed to be getting open almost every play. Adam Thielen, before he got hurt, made a couple of big plays. And then as Ted said earlier, after they got the ball in their hands, they just couldn't tackle. Bad angles, poor technique. These things that plagued them a bit in the first 2 games of the season, and they've constantly harped about it. And Antonio Pierce has talked about it every week, but it keeps happening. So, I think it's fair to say at this point the defense has been underwhelming. We thought it was going to be, potentially a great one this year, and it's fallen way short of that. Injuries have played a part in that, but them getting rolled the way that they did against the Panthers, I don't think any of us saw that coming.
I mentioned this in my story. I think one thing that maybe a thing we overlooked was, and we didn't talk much about Divine Diablo the first 2 games, but clearly he was missed today because the wide open, the middle of the field was wide open. There were guys on screens and crossing patterns that clearly the guys who took his place weren't up to the challenge. So I think he's a guy who, we didn't say he played great the first 2 weeks, but maybe he was a bigger part of their success than we thought.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Diablo is a little slow with processing the run, and he can miss tackles at times too. But he's good in pass coverage, and his speed is noticeable, and it was very noticeable today. The defense just looked slower, and there were a couple times where Eitenberg or Masterson, whoever was playing linebacker, just got outran by running back in space or a tight end or a receiver. So the defense is just slower with Diablo. That guy can close space. So that was a problem. And a high ankle sprain is so tough to play with. Whenever receivers get these injuries, they're out for 4 weeks. And even when they come back, it takes them a long time to actually get close to 100% too. So like you guys mentioned, Maxx Crosby is a tough player, but I can't imagine that he's going to be close to 100% for at least a few weeks. And we saw that, what the Raiders defense looks like when he's not at 80, 90, 100%. His impact is greatly missed. So let's talk about Antonio Pierce's comments after the game. He made some interesting comments. He said some players made business decisions during this game, and the coaching staff will respond by making their own business decisions. What did you guys think that meant?
Well, seems pretty clear to me. He thinks some guys quit out there. He didn't name explicitly who he was talking about or which side of the ball, but it looked like that in that third quarter. They were down 21-7 at halftime. That was a bigger deficit than anticipated for them going against the Panthers. But it wasn't like the game was over at that point. You still had time to mount a comeback. A whole half at home. But they just came out in that third quarter lethargic. I think it started with the play calling. You talked about it earlier in the game. Offense coordinator Luke Getsy, he was really determined to get that ground game going, and I think that was a mandate handed down by Coach Antonio Pierce. And of their first 18 plays, 10 of them were design runs, and they went nowhere doing that. There was a lot of run pass sequences, and that's how they started the second half. I mean, I don't know if I can recall a crowd booing a play call that quickly. Like they called one run to start the half, and people started booing. They called another one and started booing again. But it was
Smart.
justified boo. It was justified.
Podcast. They know what's
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I just don't know how they came out in that second half and went run pass again. Like that's when I knew the game was over. I figured it was already over when it was 21-7, but once they went 3 and out that way and punted, it was like, all right, this is done. But effort level, I mean, the missed tackles, we talked about it on defense, that stands out. But I mean, they got pushed around in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So there could be several areas that he's talking about there. I don't think it's just one player that he's talking about, but obviously not something that you want to hear. I mean, that's highly concerning to hear that in week 3 of a season. And when he says they're going to make business decisions, in response, I'm assuming that he means, potentially benching guys or maybe even cutting guys, depending on who they are. So we'll see moving forward, but definitely a red alarm, bad sign.
My guess is tomorrow he may watch that back a little bit when he watches the film. But I mean, clearly he was a little emotional. And again, he just he's a guy who all week's telling the crowd, hey man, we need you. Come wearing black, be loud, dominate this stadium, and they did. I mean, it was really loud. There was very few blue jerseys in the stands. The crowd was into it from the first second. So the fans did they pulled their weight, and I think he felt bad about that. And I think, I don't know if guys quit, but obviously at some point, if you're getting blown out by the Panthers, you're not going to be trying as hard every play as you probably would be ideally. So I think, we'll see tomorrow what he says, but I don't really know who you could bench at this point. The depth is not that great at a lot of spots. I think they're already hurting up front, where really they lost the game in the trenches. Both D-line and O-line I thought was pretty bad today. So I'm not sure what you can really do there as far as trying to spark some change. But we'll see what Antonio says tomorrow. But I thought my guess is tomorrow he'll walk that back a little bit.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out if we see some players' snap counts get cut significantly next week, if he really meant it.
Right.
But let's talk about the offense, and you talked about it. But I think one of the keys to the game was you have to be aggressive on both sides of the ball. I know they want to get their run game going, but to treat this game like it's a training camp to work on your running game, it's just the wrong approach. And I get it. The Panthers have the worst run defense in the league, but clearly this run offense is not working. You could tell that right off the bat. And there was 4 different times in this game where Gipsy went run, pass, and they all were terrible. I just think, that wasn't the biggest problem. Obviously, they couldn't move the ball regardless, but just to put yourself in that situation where you're constantly in 2nd and long and 3rd and long because you're just wasting plays basically with the run, it's just not good. And again, the offensive line, even in pass blocking, wasn't great. But I think part of the problem is Minshew holds on to the ball a lot too, and I get it. Part of his game is he's a little bit more athletic. He can create, but he's not that great of an athlete where holding on to the ball is the best approach in my opinion. And that's why I think, I think it's time to give Andy McConnell some playing time and let him,
Jesus Christ.
And let him get rid of the ball and throw the ball on time and see what happens.
You love Aiden O'Connell. I agree Minshew was not in sync. I thought he had plenty of time today to make some plays. I thought he didn't. I think, I don't know if the coverage was that good or Devontae wasn't great today and Bowers was kind of a non-factor. Yeah. So I think, again, Minshew didn't play well, but no one did. So I think the garbage time touchdowns, each had one. I'm not sure that makes a difference as far as people think O'Connell could have done better today. But we'll see. Obviously, everything's going to be in play at some point, but I don't know, again, if this is on Gardner Minshew today. They can't run the ball. So teams are definitely, pinning their ears back. And against Aiden O'Connell, I don't think that's a good recipe. But again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong very badly recently, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm not really.
There's 2 different ways to help, midgetate a bad offensive line. It's you either can get away from the pass rush and make those second reaction plays at a high level, or you just get rid of the ball quickly. And I think O'Connell's better at getting rid of the ball quickly. I don't know if Gardner Minshew's ability to create second reaction plays is that good. to where you could justify, having him hold on to the ball all those times.
I just don't think that's making this offense any better, personally. Like, I mean, in week one, we saw they got the ball out really quickly. He had the lowest air yards per attempt in the league. The pass protection wasn't as bad as it was against the Ravens, but like the offense sucked. So like he did that in week one, it didn't work. Like I don't think that's going to work for Aiden O'Connell. I just think the offensive issues are multifaceted here. Like I don't think it's just a quarterback thing. I mean, Luke Getsy, he's been rough so far calling plays. I mean that sequence in the second quarter where they ran the ball 3 times in a row, first down, second down, third down, and then went for it on fourth and four. I could not believe. I don't know how you call a run play on 3rd and 7 and try to be a serious operation. So the play calling's been pretty bad. Minshew, I think he was okay in this game. He missed that throw deep to Trey Tucker, and he had a bad interception in the second half, but I thought he was fine. The offensive line, though, is really bad. I mean, they're struggling right now. Jackson Powers-Johnson made his debut in this game, but he came off the bench. They started Cody Whitehair at left guard, so they're still bringing along Powers-Johnson slowly. He played a little bit at right guard, but Dylan Parham, that was because he got banged up, and they brought him right back in after. And then on the first series of the game, they lost Thayer Munford to knee and ankle injuries, and he didn't come back in. So Ricky DJ Glaze was in there right tackle, and offensive line just can't compete right now. I mean, they're getting bullied in the run game. They're not creating any push. They can't pass protect. And when that's the case, I mean, I just don't really know what this offense is going to do. Like they can't run the ball. The quarterbacks, neither one of their quarterbacks are good enough to drop back 40 times a game and have a sustainable offense. So like, unless this offensive line gets better, like they're cooked in terms of their offensive success. So we'll see. Maybe if Powers Johnson is able to get healthier and take on a larger role, if Colton Miller can bounce back and Thayer Munford is healthy in the long run. But without them getting better up front, I think it's going to be the same thing week in and week out for the offense.
Yeah, and the first series of the second half, what do they go out and do? They run, pass again, and it goes a 3-and-out. So
yeah, and I mean, you mentioned giving AOC a chance, and they threw him in there at the end of the game. Antonio Pierce was asked after the game. He said that's more of a, it was out of hand. He just wanted to give him a few reps out there. So, like if I was a betting man, I think Minshew is most likely going to start in Week 4 against the Browns. But the door isn't closed on AOC getting a shot at some point. Like if they, the offense continues to be, inconsistent for the next few weeks, then maybe they throw O'Connell out there to see if he gives them somewhat of a spark. But I still don't think we're quite to that point in terms of them making a quarterback change.
I will say, I mean, it's early about the Luke Getsy and all the negative stuff we're going to say about him, but Justin Fields is 3-0 with the Steelers. Oh.
The Steelers are 3-0 with Justin Fields is probably the way I would put that.
Whatever. Semantics. Semantics. Sure. I'm pulling for Luke.
He played pretty well against the Steelers today. I mean, the Chargers today. Chargers have a tough
game. He was solid.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about injuries. We talked about Maxx Crosby, and he's going to continue to play through that high ankle, but I just don't think he's going to be 100% for a long time. What you guys have other injury updates?
Yeah, I mean, we saw towards in the second half, safety Marcus Epps went down with a knee injury, using a lot of pain, down for a while. And Antonio Pierce didn't have an update after the game, but it looked significant. He was able to walk off under his own power and went back to the locker room, but he didn't return. So that's something to watch. Isaiah Polamau finished the game for him at safety. I think we talked about Epps has had his struggles this year, but I still think losing him would be a pretty big blow for a defense that already is lacking depth, in my opinion. And so as we said earlier, also Kuntz is going to be out for the season. Thayer Munford, we'll see how significant his injury is. But not only did they lose this one, but they had some pretty significant injuries to some key players as well.
All right. So where do the Raiders go from here? They are 1-3. They have
1-2.
Sorry, 1-2. They have a winnable game. Well, I shouldn't say winnable, but
can't say anything is winnable anymore. We're not doing this. We're not jinxing it.
Oh my God, the jinx! So many Raider fans are blaming. Like, I don't know if they're serious or not, but like they are. They're angry about this curse, and I see it all over my timeline. But I mean, it is a pretty bad curse that has followed us and the Raiders for a long time. But where do they go from here? Like, where do they improve? What moves can they make? Do you see them, getting this ship right anytime soon?
No, I
So
mean my confidence is pretty shot and after this one in terms of them turning this in the right direction. Understandably, we thought they had turned the corner after that Ravens win last week and kind of gotten past being capable of this type of loss, but clearly they aren't. They're able to one of those teams where they're capable of beating anybody and they're capable of losing anybody, and they seem to overlook the Panthers. To be honest, in this one, they came in thinking that they had this one in the bag, and clearly they didn't. And in terms of improvement moving forward, I mean, at some point something has to change on offense, whether it's quarterback change, whether it's a play caller change. You have to find something to get things rolling. Like this isn't going to be good enough for them to have any sort of competitive team this season. And so, how quickly that plug is pulled on either one of those spots, we'll see. But I think that's something that will be considered, especially if they go out there and stink it up again against the Browns next week, because season can start getting away from you pretty quickly.
yeah, I think they say every given Sunday. That's the cliche, and obviously they were the high of highs last week. Now it's the low of lows, but I mean they win next week against the Browns, and Raider fans are back in the bandwagon. So I think this is definitely a low point, but I think there's definitely enough talent in this team they should be able to bounce back. And you would think Antonio Pierce, up until today, has had the players always playing hard and focused. I'm not sure what happened today, overconfidence or maybe just bad game plan. But so I mean, he's upset. I think we'll see what he does. But I mean, he's been a Raider fan his whole life, so I guess part of him knows these kind of games happen, and maybe he and we all thought they were past this kind of stuff, but clearly they're not. Clearly, this is definitely in the DNA of the Raiders. This is what they do. Like Tashan said, they lose to anybody and they can beat anybody. I mean, so it's early, and we'll see how they respond. But definitely a winnable game next week, and so that's what we got.
Don't say that. Don't.
I actually they're going to win. So it's a winnable. All games are winnable.
Yeah, every game's winnable. Yeah.
I'm not picking the Raiders again this year. Raider fans can enjoy that one. So take that one for it. There'll be no more jinxes. No more jinxes on our watch. But clearly, it's a low point, and I think it's. I was surprised. I think we all were surprised, and people on the Raiders, officials and team executives I talked to were really surprised. They thought they were past this kind of performance, and clearly they weren't. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, there just wasn't any intensity today. Like, even in that first game against the Chargers, you just felt the intensity. Like they were running hard to the ball. The guys were like running into each other against the Panthers. It didn't seem like they were locked into the game plan and what they knew what they were doing. There was just so many bad details and just seemed like such lackluster effort that I kind of agree with Antonio Pierce. Like I'm curious to watch the film to see if certain players aren't playing hard or doing what they're supposed to do. But it just felt like they did overlook the Panthers and they paid for it. So that's pretty rough, but they do have a game against the Cleveland Browns at home. The Browns just lost to the New York Giants, who are a pretty bad football team. So I don't want to say the word winnable, but it is a game that
you're so scared now. You want to say winnable? We can't say winnable anymore.
Hey man, did y'all pull up to Ted's house with the black trucks or something? What y'all do while we were at the game, man? What happened?
Holy smokes! Can't even say winnable anymore. Oh my god! All right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. They've had some pretty rough lows in seasons before, and they've kind of like gone out to like challenge for a playoff spot at the end of the season. So maybe this happens again. But yeah, this was a very, very bad game. But we will move on to fan questions.
Let's see what we got here.
All right, Neil, do I check the private chat for the or comments?
We got one.
Okay, from Jose Almo. Sup, fellas? Appreciate what y'all do, but why did you all pick him to win?
I appreciate you, but I hate you. I hate all three of you. It's valid.
I mean, the Panthers did not have a lead in a game since last year, so that I think logically, it seemed like this was a winnable game, but I think if you watched the Raiders for a long time, you knew a letdown was definitely possible. But I don't know. It might take one of us to just go against what we think one day and just pick against them, just so the Raiders don't get cursed.
Yeah, the real we have to just stop agreeing with one another. Every week we've made the same decision, so every week moving forward, we have to have at least one lone wolf that stands on his own.
It will never, ever happen again.
All right. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens next week against the Browns when we have to pick. All right. Next question from Mr. Is the locker room fully behind AP?
Yeah, that hasn't changed. I think after one game, I think I talked to Nate Hobbs, and he kind of echoed that he thought some guys weren't totally focused the whole game. So, I mean, I think it's something they'll talk about as a team. And again, I mean, a big part of this really is Maxx Crosby. He's the heart and soul of this team. So if he's a non-factor on defense, that's a huge loss for them. I think Richard Wilkins was half a sack, but I wouldn't say he was great today. I think he also probably was kind of fighting a small injury. But the identity of this team is supposed to be a defense will carry us, and the offense will do enough. The offense will do enough to get us where we need to go. And so the first part of that equation was defense didn't come through today, and that's on Pierce and Patrick Graham. But I think the team totally feels it's a long season, and this is a low point, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the locker room, so it's hard to get the vibe from them. But you guys feel like the vibe is still like they could get this thing together.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't like in a good mood today, but I don't think it's a matter of like him losing the locker room. Like I think the guys are still bought in, and I know a lot of people are asking, the business decision. He didn't say who the players are, so we don't know. So we're not going to get on here and speculate about who those players are. He's probably not going to announce that in a press conference setting. As we said earlier, we're going to have to wait and see next week. If any guys are benched or lose playing time, and then we'll probably have a better insight into that. But just speaking on the macro level, we can't speak for every single player as an individual, but he still has a locker room. It's not to that point. We saw a coach lose a locker room last year and Josh McDaniels, and it's not that. So I don't think they have that problem at this point.
All right. From Nitin C. Honest question. Why would Luke Getsy run plays on first and second down when he knew the run was so ineffective? I think part of it was a mandate from AP to get the run game going this week. They kind of went away from the outside zone. They ran a little bit more power gap scheme stuff. But I mean, I think the intent was based on all the comments this week and based on what we saw, they were trying to get the run game going against one of the worst run defenses in the league. I just don't think I just didn't think it was the right approach. Like you could slowly call some runs and hope that it hits here and there, but for them to go in and just bang their heads against the wall like that was the wrong approach to me.
Yeah, Antonio said he Good.
I was gonna say, you don't have to run the ball on the first two downs every time to establish the run, like you said. You can mix it up, and I think also recognize early in the game that it wasn't working. Like you said, you can't just keep doing it over and over and over and hitting your head against the wall. Like you have to mix it up at some point, and they did that in the second half once they were down by 2 scores, but it's just sort of too late at that juncture of the game. And so, until they're able to get some better blocking up front, just calling a run is not suddenly going to work. And so that's the root of the issue, and they have to find a way to figure that out. And so, that's on the coaching staff, Pierce, Getsy, offensive line coach James Craig, and then obviously the players to step it up as well. Yeah,
I don't think it's all on Getsy. I mean, I think last week Antonio said he wanted 20 touches for Zamir White, and he only got 10. Obviously, 10 was enough. Otherwise, Raider fans would storm the field. But, he clearly wants to run the ball, and that's what he wants. He said today again after the game, that's what he wants their identity to be. Run the ball first, then play action, open up the rest of the field. So at some point, he'll quit. He'll say, you know what, we can't run the ball. Screw it. Just go 4 wides and let's go crazy. But he's not there yet. I'm not sure if this was the defining moment, or if they will keep trying to run the ball. But clearly they can't with this O-line and even with the running backs they have. They're not totally at blame, but they get some of the blame. So I think it is a mandate by Antonio Pierce who wants to run the ball. And that may change. It may change soon, but I think that was a mandate today.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Bill Belichick content on his media tour, and he brought this up a few times where Ernie Adams is his basically his analytics guy, and he brought up a few times where Ernie Adams would tell him the run game's not going today. We just have to abandon the run. I feel like somebody has to get that message in sooner because it's just not happening. They're just wasting downs at this point. Sam A asks, do we have the worst coaching staff in the NFL?
Come on now. What was that question? What was that question last week? Come on now. Come on, Sam A. You're better than that.
I think Patrick Graham is a very good DC. I know today wasn't the best showing, but I thought he took the correct approach. And I feel like the coverage was a little too soft, but I thought blitzing at a high rate was the right approach. So I can't fault him for that, and I think he's a quality DC. Luke Getsy was never a big fan of his offense. And, I think Antonio Pierce, we've seen that he does have an effect on the roster, getting guys to believe and play together. Obviously, again, didn't happen today. So I don't think this is the worst coaching staff in the NFL.
Raider fans are I love them, but they're crazy. We're the best. Oh, we're the worst. We're the best. Oh, we're the worst.
Yeah. It's a roller coaster, man. Roller coaster. Well, the team has to stop being a roller coaster. I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, I think that this will also be bad regardless, but I think the fact that they beat the Ravens last week, that got the fans. They were like fully on board. They were behind it again. Like they were full steam ahead, and then you just immediately fall off the fucking cliff. So I get it. But no,
it's not fun to be a Raider fan. Raider fans have been suffering. I haven't won a playoff game in 21 fucking years, so it's definitely tough for Raider fans. I feel for them. I mean, they came out today really fired up. I thought, this is going to be different. This home opener, we're playing, freaking Patsy, freaking 50-year-old Andy Dalton. We're going to roll today, and it was their worst nightmare possible. So I totally get the frustration, and ideally at some point they get this fixed. But we're still in the process phase, so we still got to figure out the offense, and they got to figure out what holes they have on defense also.
Yeah. All right. Jay asks, is there a way to fix the season, add a player, change play picks, coaches, or just give up?
Just give up. That's it. It's over. We lost to the Panthers at home. It's over. We're done. All of the above. They're gonna change some play calling. They're gonna tweak some players. They're going to change some picks. The coaches aren't going to change. But I'm sure, if Antonio Pierce looked frustrated and upset to us, I'm sure that's times 10 with his staff and with his players. So I think you have to imagine it'll be a tough week. He said there's going to be a rough week of practice. There'll be a lot of hard coaching. The players better not be sensitive because it's going to be a tough week for them. So we'll see how they respond. But, I think when you hit the bottom like this, there's only one way to go, and that's up.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see on the player front. I know that Daniel Aguilar is another guy that asked questions saying, maybe could they add pass rush help in the wake of, knowing that Kuntz is out for the year. I think they ideally want to try to work it out with the guys they have internally. I mean, they did take Terry Wilson in the first round last year. I know he hasn't really done anything to this point. So I don't know how long they're going to how long of a leash you're going to give him, or Charles Snowden or Janarius Robinson. Like they don't really have defensive in depth, but I think as Ted said, that high ankle sprain to Crosby, that could be a lingering issue. And I mean, if the pass rush is as bad as it was today, like they're going to have a hard time stopping really any opposing offense. So maybe they do start sniffing around on the trade market. It's not like guys are just giving away pass rushers, but maybe we'll see maybe like a team like the Jets with Hassan Reddick, being out, in his weird kind of holdout situation. Maybe he's a guy that's available. I don't know. I don't think they're looking to trade him, but I'm not sure, really what avenues. It kind of depends on other teams in the leagues, but I think edge rusher and then potentially offensive line. If their issues continue, there could be two positions where maybe it makes sense to look to add some help.
Man, where's Arden Key at, man? Bring back Arden Key. You can trade for him. Like, is he? I think he's on the Titans. Aren't they 0-3? Bring back Arden Key. I think I felt bad for Tyree Wilson because obviously he's not done much. But today actually broke through and almost had a sack. But Dalton got rid of it just in time, and it was a touchdown pass to make it the second score of the game. But Tyree was just that close to getting a big sack, and damn redhead rifle striked again. So, but I thought he was close to making a play today. So almost.
No, I was going to bring that up. That was actually a really nice pass rush.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and he ripped right through it. But that was a quality pass rush. But yeah, Dalton just got rid of the ball, and it ended up being a touchdown. And Dalton made some great passes today. I mean, we can make fun of Dalton all we want, but that guy he threw some dimes today. Got to give him some credit.
Oh, I should write him a letter of apology. I feel that bad. I ripped for the guy all week saying it was washed. Clearly, I'm an idiot. He's a legend. Red Rifle. Salute.
I mean, there's something about the Raiders that just brings out the best in Andy Dalton. There's something about the Raiders. But I think I agree with a lot of you guys said. These crappy games happen to even the best teams, but let's see how they respond. I mean, 1-2 is not the worst thing in the world. Let's see how they respond, and we'll tell a lot about this team, how they respond to the hard message and the business decisions and all that next week.
It is bad though. It is 1-2 with this schedule. That's bad. They should not be 1-2.
Yeah. All right. Derek Brown asks, "What do we do with Getsy?"
I mean, I don't know. I mean, before this game, they had 9 explosive pass plays and they lead the league. So he's not doing everything wrong. I just think it's all about getting guys in sync, and the running game is handcuffing him. Obviously, he's bound to the running game, and until that works, or until they, uncuff him from having to run the ball, then it's going to be an issue. But clearly, they have enough talent on offense to be better than this. I mean, that's if they should not be having a hard time scoring points. We have Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, a big play today. Michael Mayer's fine. There's a lot of guys who can catch the ball on this team. So maybe the answer is just forget the running game and just go 4 wides and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean,
he's air raid back. So, if you're going to start him, just go air raid. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, we keep saying they have the talent. I don't know if they have the offensive line talent, to be honest.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Like they have skill position talent, but this offensive line just might not be good. I mean, it didn't add a whole bunch to the unit. It wasn't good last year, and then the main addition this year were a couple of rookies and Powers Johnson and DJ Glaze. I think Glaze got a decent amount of action today. We didn't really see much of Powers Johnson, but unless one or both of those guys pops, I don't really know where the improvement comes from. But I think that's really the root of the offensive issues. Not to say that Getsy's done a great job. I don't think he has, but there's only so much you can do as a play caller if you can't block. You know what I mean? Not to say that we haven't seen a team put together, some solid offensive success with a bad offensive line, but it's rarely going to be consistent when that's the case. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Raiders.
Yeah. Also, it's a small note, but I thought it was weird that Powers Johnson came in today. They want to give him some run. He came in on the right side for Dylan Parham, which I thought that was kind of bizarre. And Antonio was asked about it, and Parham wasn't hurt. They just thought they want to give JPJ a shot on the right side, which I think is a little odd if you want a guy to be, a factor and to get a role coming in for a guy who's, one of your better starters, I guess, and Dylan Parham. He's not a problem. So I thought that was kind of weird.
Didn't they move Parham to the right side so JPJ could play on the left sid?
They moved him because they thought he was better suited to the right side. So I don't think that was a cause and effect thing, but I thought it was weird.
Yeah, it was a little strange.
Maybe Parham plays a little center. We will see.
That'd be a big change, and during the season, to change your center. But who knows?
Yeah. All right. Next question. Jose Almos asks, any offensive line additions available that could help? I just don't think teams trade their offensive linemen that often. I don't remember any major offensive line trades during the season at all. I'm struggling to remember one. Teams just don't trade offensive linemen.
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened, but it's like you said, it's rare. And I'm trying to think of notable. There's just probably not any notable offensive linemen that are still free agents at this point. Like if they are, then I'm sure they are free agents for a reason. because every team could use more offensive line depth. And so I think the solution is going to have to come internally this year.
Yeah, I think people are so worried about the offensive lines and the depth that they're really trying to trade pieces. They want to make sure they have a good starting five, a good backups in case things happen. So I can't imagine why, if someone's halfway decent, why a team would want to trade them, because they're all fearing the worst. They're all fearing an injury. So if you have depth, you're not going to trade it. And if you don't, then you don't want those guys anyway. So I think we're kind of stuck with what we have. So the Raider fans got to hope that DJ Glaze is up for the challenge and JPJ gets some run and shows you why he was a second-round pick. The Mumford's okay, and then the Colt Miller has really struggled. I think today it was a little bit better. I thought the pass protection was better today than it was last week. Still not great, but that was maybe one small positive that I thought actually was improved from last week. But otherwise, still a long way to go for this O-line.
Yeah, I think the hope is Colt Miller's improves and JPJ ends up being a player. If those two things happen, I could see significant improvement with this offensive line. Because let's say all of a sudden you have one side of the ball that's really good, and then the other side you could give help to. You could live like that. So I think that's the greatest hope you have. And Colt Miller is just, we've talked about it a lot in this show. He's not himself right now. So we'll see what happens if you can start improving with a little bit more time to heal as we go. All right, let's take a couple more questions. All right, what does our record have to be at the trade deadline to deal guys away? Let's talk about that with another question. Davante Adams being traded, a reality if this continues?
I think it has to be. I mean, if they have a losing record at the deadline or close to it, I don't see why you wouldn't move him. I mean, I don't think you're going to bring him back at the price you'd want if you have a losing record. If you're like in a playoff run, a playoff chase, and maybe you can think about it. But if you're kind of closer to that rebuilding phase than you are to being a contender, I don't know why you would not trade him. So I think, I think if you have a losing record, if you're, I don't know if you're 4-6 or whatever they are at that time, then I think you got to do it. I think you got to make a move.
Yeah, so the trade deadline is week 10, so they'll have played 9 games by then. So I think they have to be multiple games under 500 to consider it. So at least 3-6, I would say.
3-6.
Yeah, so if they're 3-6 or worse, I think at that point, assuming that there is a team that makes an offer, which I would think that there would be if people knew that Davante Adams was available, then I think you need to go ahead and make that move. But yeah,
I'd say even
they're 1-2 is early. I'm
gonna say even 4 and 5. I'm gonna go even 4
and 5.
I'm going up you. If you're 4 and 5, I think you're Tom Telesco. You're looking more, down the road in this year. It depends on the offer. Obviously, depends what they're being offered. But I think even 4 and 5, I think you have to consider it just based on. I mean, we'll see.
I think that's too close to being competitive still. Like 4 and 5, you can feasibly turn that around and still convince yourself that you can make a playoff. I just think that's a tough sell. That's just I think organizationally that sends like a message if you're 4 and 5 and trade arguably your best player. So, they can always trade them in the offseason too. Like let's say that they are 4 and 5 and finish poorly and decide to move on in the offseason. So they don't necessarily have to move on at the deadline this year to move on. That's why I just think if they're remotely still competitive, I think it's just kind of hard to see.
All right, you're probably right. 3-6 is probably right. 4 and 5 I might be wrong.
Davante Adams for Hassan Reddick and draft picks. Who says no?
The Raiders say no because you got to give Reddick a new deal. He's not going to play unless you give him a new contract right away. So, are you willing to do that? You're going to give him a new deal today? I don't remember whenever they make that trade. I think so.
Do you agree to a team-friendly deal? No, I'm just kidding. He's not going to.
Shout out to Jacob for the donation, but I don't think we're going to go down that path.
I didn't see the question.
Comments about Mark Davis. I think we were going to stay off that one, but he did. Basically the sentiment was like they could have had Harbaugh, which
hey man, Harbaugh lost today. He made a bad move. He played a hurt quarterback, and he got further hurt. So Harbaugh didn't have a good day either.
Yeah,
take that one, Jacob Ryan.
Always so positive. All right, last question from Young Yankee. This feels a tad like panic mode. No. I think anytime you get smashed by the Carolina Panthers, I think you should panic a little bit. But
They get smashed by the Panthers. I would have thought that was even possible, that sentence. God. Oof.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, man. God. Hall of Famer. Woo.
Yeah, it's time to panic for sure. I mean, like the season isn't over; it's only 3 games into the year, but like, I don't know how you're not panicking after that.
yeah,
No.
and I think the optimism for the Raiders being a good team this year was they had a relatively weak schedule to start off the season, and they should have take advantage of these. I don't want to say the word winnable games early in the season, but they haven't. So it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, when your coach is questioning players' effort and saying business decisions, your best player's got a high ankle sprain, and you get blown out at home by the Panthers, you definitely can panic a little bit. Don't go crazy. Don't jump off the bridge, but you can panic a little bit.
Yeah, don't jump off the bridge, but we'll see how they respond against a bad Cleveland team next week. It's not over. We've seen these very low lows in seasons before, and they've kind of bounced back and made things interesting in the end. So if you watch the Raiders a long time, I think you would know that this team still has some talent, and we'll see if they can get it together against the Browns next week. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions. Make sure you subscribe to podcasts, and we will preview the Browns games and make our predictions on Thursday. So make sure you tune in for that.
I'm picking the Browns.
Okay.
We're not. We'll save the rest of our predictions for Thursday.
We will not all agree. I'm picking the Browns. We will
Yeah.
not all agree. Again, we all apologize to Raider fans for the picks and to Andy Dalton for disrespect. Very, very surprising outcome today.
All right, guys. We will talk to you on Friday. Later.
All right, y'all.
Hasta la vista.